No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 355 and breaking today. Birmingham has fallen. The UK's second city, which has already banned Israeli fans from tonight's Aston Villa versus Tel Aviv Maccabi clash, resembled a war zone overnight, with worse to come in the coming hours.
Oh, they got a knife. Oh my gosh.
As the Islamists continue to gaslight us all, Tommy Robinson has issued a chilling warning.
Have a bat in your car, but you can't demonstrate that you have a sporting event. You can get into trouble with the police and the prosecution and see yourself in court for possession of an offensive weapon. So if you do have a baseball bat, for example, for a sporting event, then make sure it is clear and you have other equipment with it as well.
You need to be very careful because this isn't, you may think you're in a Western democracy, you're in Britain, it's okay, it has law and order. It doesn't, not when it comes to the Muslim community. They'll allow them all to be masked up, ballied up. No one will know who they are. They'll be hunting around the stadium.
But the crooked and corrupt MSM continue to push the lunacy that Elon Musk is the real problem while running propaganda pieces about illegal immigration.
I tell you the trouble with what he's saying is that it's almost like it's not just that he's repeating it. He wants
he's
it to
advocating.
Be he's advocating for it. There's a degree in which he wants it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy that there will be civil war.
But Mohammed wants to talk. We're protecting his identity. He tells us he's fleeing political persecution and torture back home, but he never bargained for what Britain would offer.
How is the hotel?
Not good.
Not good.
Not good. Bad. Very, very bad.
Good, piss off then. You should never have come here in the first place. So I'll call out Woke ITV and the fake news agents as they ignore the real story of the destruction of Birmingham in my digest next. Then, analysis from Connor Tomlinson, host of the brilliant YouTube channel Tomlinson Talks. Also coming up today, a grovelling GB News apology to Tommy Robinson after they brand him a homegrown terrorist on air just hours after being cleared of terrorism by a judge. The revelations from the family of ex-Rudy Gabana should be horrifying Britain, so we'll call for the deportation of his parents who are being protected by the British deep state. And Prince Harry makes a blatant bid to win over Brits who he, not all that long ago, do you remember this, derided as backward racists for voting for Brexit, so will his ploy work? Then in the uncancelled after show over on Substack, a new low for desperate Meghan Markle as she is forced to return to acting, accepting a role as herself in a new Hollywood movie. So we're teaming up with the royal YouTube sensations, the Sidley twins for the lowdown, as well as the incredible scenes from Brazil as Prince William hosts a star-studded Earthshot prize. You can sign up to watch at www.outspoken.live. And we've got a special show tomorrow, so we're going one day early with our worst Britain in the world today. You can vote in the posts tab on YouTube right now. We've had tens of thousands already. Here are your nominees. From Monday, it was Ed Miliband. From Tuesday, Rachel Reeves. And from Wednesday, David Lammy. I'm going to read out your feedback at the end of the show, so do keep it coming in today. But now, let's go. Islam is about to show it is now the dominant force on Britain. That is the chilling warning from Tommy Robinson ahead of tonight's Aston Villa versus Tel Aviv Maccabi clash, which has already seen Israelis banned as Islamists plot for a violent takeover, meaning 700 police have been drafted in. But the sad reality is that Birmingham, the UK's second city, has already fallen. The metropolis resembled a war zone overnight, with worse to come in the coming hours. Martin Gauci reported Birmingham erupts as someone is stabbed live over fireworks, and David Atherton reported ugly scenes near Aston Villa's stadium as local Muslim and left activists put up signs that read, "No war games allowed, Zionists not welcome, show Zionists the red card." And he said Israel occasionally does overplay the anti-Semitism card, but that is not the case here. The hate is palpable. So I want to show you the scenes overnight from Birmingham that the mainstream media are trying to cover up.
Chill. I know you're trying to separate it, but... We're live in Birms! Get back! Get back! Come and do this! Get back, love! Live in Birms! Yo, why's everyone fighting?
20 minutes.
Look at the officer. Officer's choppy. Officer's enjoying. This is what we call a nice officer. Behind the line, guys. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to make an account now. Hey, the fence is condensed. The fence is She's locked up, she's gone. She's gone.
So Aston Villa, here we are. The lads over there are putting signs on the lampposts.
DP as well. Pick it up.
We thought we'd come here before the calm, before the storm. Obviously tomorrow, Maccabi Tel Aviv are turning up. The fans were banned, as you all know. Now, what the signs are putting up is no war games allowed. Palestine flag. So they're putting signs out. So I'm guessing this side is where that's this side of the red card up there, look. And then the counter will be up that side, I'm guessing, all around the other way. But it's got to be a bloody busy day. Go on. What's this area called? Is this actually Aston here?
The reaction from patriots is horror as our elite class go completely silent. Paul Joseph Watson posted the tradition of attacking police and firemen with fireworks has been happening in diverse European cities for years. Now it's in the UK. Emma Speaks Freely posted, "My mum grew up 15 minutes down the road from where the main protest will take place tonight. She can't believe what it's become. She never goes to Birmingham. She's too scared. This is our home. It's being taken right out from under us." And Starmer Out added sarcastically, "I await Starmer's national press conference, ushering in the full force of the state to stamp down hard, complete with televised show trials." Just kidding. He only does that to English people. He will probably donate a couple of billion for youth centres, ban bonfire night and blame the far right. Tommy Robinson added alongside this video, "So gangs of Muslims have been out in England's second largest city, Birmingham, masked up as usual, beaming videos onto walls, and raising the flag of a terrorist state in an effort to intimidate Israeli football supporters. Not a word from politicians and legacy media. And this lot, this pro-Palestinian mob, are literally predicting a riot. They want a riot. Watch. But in our MSM, the election of hard-left Islamist Mamdani in New York has actually seen MSM figures like Woke ITV's Good Morning Britain host Adil Ray openly advocate for the introduction of Sharia law. I'm not joking. Look at this post. Some say Mamdani may implement Sharia law. He might. The heart of Sharia is social justice, welfare, fairness, charity, and cohesion. Most Muslim countries operate a hybrid of Sharia and civil law, thus slowly reforming and abandoning unethical practices despite the West's portrayal. Yes, that is a presenter, a mainstream presenter on Woke ITV, pushing the peaceful religion of Sharia law. That peaceful religion, so well illustrated by that Muslim hardliner in Birmingham, Ahmed Yaqub. Watch.
You can't demonstrate that you have a sporting event. You can get into trouble with the police and the prosecution and see yourself in court for possession of an offensive weapon. So if you do have a baseball bat, for example, for a sporting event, then make sure it is clear and you have other equipment with it as well. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to show that you have a reasonable excuse to have this bat. Always remember, there's a defense for every offense.
Prophet was a Semitic.
So you're telling me that Muslims cannot be anti-Semitic, that it's part of your sacred creed?
Muslims cannot be against any religion. We are taught to coexist with peace and harmony with every religion.
Well, it's not really working out, is it? Particularly, shall we say, in Gaza.
Why not?
Well, the Muslims who invaded Israel on October the 7th a couple of years ago, were they sticking to your creed of you must live in harmony, you must not be anti-Israel? Well, how do they fit into what you're telling me about Muslims?
What about the children?
No, tell me that. Those Hamas thugs, who massacred.
What about the 1948?
Okay, yeah, but never mind what about it. You just told me that it's sacred.
Now then, you want to talk about history?
No, I want to talk about October the 7th. I want to talk about October. Are you going to answer my question? You can't answer my question. You just told me that it's sacred to Muslims that they cannot be anti-Semitic. What would you describe those Hamas Muslims who invaded?
What would you describe as 1948?
Well, no. Why are you going to answer my question? Are you going to answer my question? Well, they're not exactly being...
people from their homes...
Well, the peace and harmony that you talk about wasn't exactly in evidence, was it?
Tommy Robinson has warned that what happens tonight will be a foreshadowing of what's to come.
Tonight, Tel Aviv are playing Aston Villa and Islam is about to show its dominant force on Britain. Okay, they already have, because the Birmingham police had to cancel, for safety reasons, any Tel Aviv fans coming to the city of Birmingham, because they knew what would happen. They'd be hunted down, they'd be attacked, they'd be violently attacked. But not happy with that, the Muslim community are now saying they don't want the Tel Aviv football team. And this is the start, okay? So they want the whole of Birmingham, they want the whole of the UK to be a Jew-free zone, but they're labelling it as Zionists. We'll let them do that for now, yeah? But what they're saying is no Zionists, people who believe in a homeland for Jewish people. Remember, these are Muslims living in a Christian land, yeah, who have come here to dominate, who are having a go at Jews for going home to their land. Couldn't make it up. Then they're making videos saying this is their city. So this is Muslims telling the whole world that Birmingham is their Muslim city. and moaning about the Jews in their own land, in their own one and only Jewish state in the world. There's 55 Islamic nations. Forget the Islamic nations, they've infiltrated and dominated now every Western nation as well, yeah?
And we've got to think about the two-tier policing, which is coming in the next few hours.
Any fans are going there. You need to be very careful, because this isn't, you may think you're in a Western democracy, you're in Britain, it's okay, it has law and order. It doesn't, not when it comes to the Muslim community. They will be balaclavaed up, masked up with weapons, and the police will not. Do you know, at any football game, any demonstration, the police issue, I think it's a section 60, which means no face coverings. Yeah? I think it's section 60. So any demonstration that we would have previously as the EDL, or any right-wing demonstrations, anything like that, they'll issue this order, which means the police have the ability to arrest you if you cover your face. They won't issue that tonight. They'll allow them all to be masked up, ballied up. No one will know who they are. They'll be hunting around the stadium. I'll be surprised if the game is able to go ahead.
And what is most shocking about all of this is that the MSM is just pretending like this unrest in Birmingham isn't even happening.
Schools are closed today in Birmingham. They're closing all the schools early for safety. Now imagine a right-wing demonstration was targeting a minority group of fans or supporters or a race or religion, and they were coming out in such numbers that all the schools were having to shut. Imagine what all our politicians would be saying. Imagine the outcry. They'd probably get the military on the street to deal with us. Let's see what they do tonight at the Tel Aviv football match, yeah? Let's see what they do tonight. But if you are going, stay safe, man. If you're going to report, stay safe, because the police will not enforce the law against them. Not evenly. We all know that, yeah? You've all seen that.
We have. We have seen it. We know it. And it's shocking. But what's so shocking to me is what the MSM is concerned about today. Not the most astonishing degradation of Birmingham, but rather Elon Musk's support of Tommy Robinson after he posted on his X platform following the no guilty verdict earlier this week. Thank you for raising the flag of England while so many cowards cowered. The fake news agents are obsessed with this because they're just pretending that this country isn't in deep trouble. Watch.
Elon Musk has a very big voice, and Joe Rogan's podcast amplifies this massively. We now have Americans convinced that if you go to the Cotswolds now, you're inevitably going to get raped, because that's what happens when you go to places like this out of London. I mean, it is frankly fucking absurd. I mean, just absurd. But he's also coupled this with some posts this weekend on his social media platform, X, that without doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, civil war is coming to England.
Well, this is how it works, isn't it? You go on a podcast and you spout shite about something you know nothing about. I mean, what he's demonstrating there, I think, is like how seldom he probably comes to England, to the UK, how little he knows anywhere that he's even naming. But all that you have to do is go on a podcast, have that repeated, and then you, as the richest, most powerful media magnate in the world now, put civil war is coming, which reinforces your own position, which has no basis in fact or evidence or anything else, which other people then tweet, so it becomes real.
I tell you the trouble with what he's saying is that it's almost like, it's not just that he's repeating it, he wants it to be... He's advocating for it. There's a degree in which he wants it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, that there will be civil war, because this is what he said immediately after Southport, that he said civil war is coming to England and the terrible murder of the 3 girls. And again, he has said it again when there was civil disturbances, civil war is coming. And I think he's slightly frustrated that people in the Hobbit-like villages of England are carrying on their daily lives pretty much as normal.
Are you kidding me? The only one spouting shite mateless is you and your hard-left mate Sopal. Look at the footage that I've just shown from Birmingham. Over the past 24 hours, civil war is clearly coming. Some would argue the scenes on the street make it clear that it's already here or it's already close. But nothing in the mainstream media could be as bad as Woke ITV. And I've got to take you through this because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my own eyes. So Woke ITV has finally launched a special series on the concerns of mass immigration, sweeping the British population. I thought, okay, fair enough. Maybe they have finally understood that we're done, that we've had it. But absolutely not. They used this special report to try and make us feel sorry for the illegal criminals who break into our country and are then put up in free hotels. Watch.
Tonight, we begin a series of special reports examining just how deep those rifts are across the country. The exclusive research shows opposition to immigration has risen significantly over the last 5 years. It's high across all ages, but particularly strong among people aged 55 and older. And anti-immigration sentiments run highest in coastal areas.
When they dreamt of England, they didn't reckon on the Metropole Hotel. Marooned on the Lancashire coast, home to hundreds of asylum seekers. Focus of anger most weekends. Fury on the outside. Fear on the inside. A dividing line few are brave enough to cross. But Mohammed wants to talk. We're protecting his identity. He tells us he's fleeing political persecution and torture back home, but he never bargained for what Britain would offer.
How is the hotel?
Not good.
Not good?
Not good. Bad. Very, very bad.
We have images from inside, taken within the past few months. The hotel's operator, Serco, insists these problems have been fixed, that no concerns have been raised by official bodies. But still, it's far from the paradise Mohammed says he imagined.
Food, not good. Smell. I am sick.
Are you kidding me? I don't give a damn. I seriously don't give a damn. They shouldn't be here whatsoever. If they are here, they should be intense. Like, I cannot believe that Woke ITV says we're going to do a series about the problems with illegal immigration. But actually what we're going to focus on are the fact that the illegals, the rapists, the terrorists, the murderers are not being housed in accommodation that's quite luxurious enough. Now, unbelievably, that same reporter then spoke to a deprived native Blackpool resident, former drug addict, and tried to make him feel bad for the illegals.
People think that inside the hotel it's some kind of luxurious life. The reality is they're crowded into rooms. They get £10 a week to spend.
My point is, unless you can identify them, send them back.
But we have something to show Nathan. Those pictures from inside the Metropole.
This is somebody's bedroom.
Someone's ceiling leak in there. Yeah. That's not fair letting them live. That's disgusting. That is disgusting. Raw sewage and that's just wrong. Them top ones, it's water in a basement, but that is dangerous. There's kids in that hotel. Yeah. Considering it's paid for by the government, that is wrong. That should be in a lot better condition than that.
And did it make you rethink the bigger picture about migrants housed in hotels in Blackpool?
The system that they've got at the minute isn't working clearly because it's causing protests and causing wars, and the government needs to make a better system to manage this whole crisis at the minute because it's not managed very well.
It's a mess.
It's a mess, it is.
The mainstream media honestly needs to die. Meanwhile, the drumbeat of terror and terror that is coming is in our face every single damn day.
Got a bit of breaking news to bring you now because we've had some new statistics about the number of referrals to the government's anti-extremism scheme Prevent, and they have gone up a lot. There were a record 8,778 referrals, which is up 27% on the previous year. Now, this was expected, I should say. They said that part of the reason for that surge is in the wake of the appalling Southport murders we saw in 2024. There have been more people referred to the scheme. Axel Rudakabana, of course, was referred 3 times to the scheme, Prevent, before he carried out those attacks.
Just use the damn word. Just use the damn word. Islam extremism. That's what it's about. As Connor Tomlinson posted, reminder, British intelligence and the government have been repeatedly warned about thousands of jihadist terror cells currently in our country, plotting attacks on civilians and infrastructures, and they have done nothing. They have done nothing because they hire Muslims who don't want to be called racist. Their feelings matter more than your family. And Connor Tomlinson is here now. Connor, extraordinary scenes in Birmingham overnight. And remember, these Islamist extremists said, we're not going to protest if you ban the Israeli football fans. They were banned, and the hatred is still spreading all throughout that city. And I think there is clear and silent violence from some of the leaders there. We knew what he was saying about the baseball bat, Connor, right? Like, we weren't born yesterday. We know what he was saying about the baseball bat. He wants the Islamists to be armed in Birmingham tonight.
Well, this is the same Ahmed Yaqub who went on GB News at one point, I think it was with Ben Leo, or it was The Five, and was sat next to a guy in a England football shirt, and he said, well, as you can see with my friend here who is wearing his England football shirt, we celebrate British values, after having already been on a podcast laughing about the Islamic takeover of Britain. So when people tell you who they are, especially in an accent that laden with low impulse control and stupidity, I think we should believe them. As far as the Islamic takeover of Birmingham, yes, the posters that were put up about not allowing Zionists and the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans to visit were put up by a group called Deenified. Deen means living according to the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. So this is an Islamic activist group who are going out in the dead of night, wearing masks, evading accountability, no matter what crimes they may commit, and feeling entitled to put up racial and religious blood libel posters in their area. But the thing is, Dan, I will raise it. You said that the mainstream media and politicians don't care. And that seems to be true of the liberal umpires in the Labour Party, who think that they can make all of these groups who have had irreconcilable differences for thousands of years, particularly in the Middle East, play nice. And the only people's concerns, the indigenous Brits, in this conversation are forgotten. However, there is a subset of politicians who do care, and that is like Sir Michael Gove or Priti Patel, many people in the Conservative Party who have been appalled about the treatment of Jewish football fans, but have not been appalled about the fact that they brought the people that are mistreating them here in the first place and allowed them to turn our second largest city and many other cities in our country, Blackburn, Luton, Bradford, bits of Manchester, London, into open-air Islamic slums. And so I must ask Dan, and it is a very contentious question, but why does it only matter when Muslims mistreat Jews or murder Jews, as happened on Yom Kippur earlier in October, absolutely appalling, but they don't care as much when it's the grooming gangs, when it's the Manchester Arena attacks, when it's just mass migration causing their Islamic advocates, like Mr. Yaqub and the MPs in Parliament who stood on a pro-Gaza ticket. Why do they only care when it's happening to Jews, but not the rest of us? I think we should both be held to the same standards, and none of these terror sympathizers should be in my country.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I care every damn day about this takeover. And it is now very clearly a takeover. And we've seen that they are trying to repeat the same thing in New York. So what has happened in London and Birmingham should be a lesson to the West. And I completely agree. I mean, this is something I think we've got to start talking about every damn day. In some ways, Connor, I'm heartened by the fact that I've seen figures on the right in America pick up the mantle from the dearly departed Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, for example, who is now just prepared to say it. You know, Islam is not compatible with our way of life in the West. It is okay to not want to have Islamist leaders of our biggest cities. And I do wonder if that will maybe embolden some of the people over here who, you are quite right, on a day-to-day basis are not prepared to call out this threat, which is already here. And in America, they are prepared to call it out. They know about it, and they know about it in part because of what's happened to London, Connor.
That is true, though they're still trying to force the GOP's hand to block immigration from the Muslim world. Trump did have an immigration red list, which was referred to as a Muslim ban, which stopped the large sponsors and producers of terrorists from coming into the country. But the last time, Dan, I was in Washington, D.C. Dulles, it looked like a refugee camp. So America needs to get a handle on its Muslim migration. They've got enclaves across Minnesota and Michigan and now Texas. They're building a Muslim separatist city, and these are in even Republican states. I mean, remember, George Bush, after 9/11, allowed millions of Muslims to move to the United States, and this is why they've elected Mamdani, who is basically third world bane, as mayor of New York. It's because the majority of New York is not New Yorkers. They are not Americans. They are first generation or second generation immigrants, many from the third world, aided and abetted by suicidal white leftists, because 84% of white women in New York who, despite their own unsafety, are still living in New York, voted for Mamdani. But Mamdani, when he got up and celebrated his victory, he announced that this was for the abuelas and the taxi drivers, and he didn't list a single American. It was all immigrant client groups. And so Mamdani's resentful politics are the same politics as the Islamic and Left Alliance, and that is, they don't like white people, they want to steal their stuff, and they want to give it to people that look like them. And we are seeing the same politics inflicted upon us in Britain, in our major cities, by raw demographics. It's not just ideological, it's not just religious, it is ethnic resentment and naked colonialism, and it just needs to be reversed.
It really does. It really does need to be reversed. I don't hold out much hope. The shocking thing too, of course, is that there is still a full-throttled attack on any individual in the United Kingdom who is calling out the Islam threat. And that attack, by the way, comes from the deep state, and it comes from the mainstream media. And we've seen it this week with Tommy Robinson, even though he was found not guilty in a court case that shames the British deep state. That shames the British police. And if this judge hadn't made the right decision, it would have shamed the British judiciary too. But the reality is it should never have got in front of a judge. And we're seeing this happen in so many ways, right? So I want to talk to you about the most egregious this week was when some lunatic lefty called Pablo Ohana, who is now used by GB News as the sort of fix to the off-communist problem, went on the channel, and hours after Tommy had just been cleared of being a homegrown terrorist, called Tommy a homegrown terrorist. Now, there's been major developments on this overnight, because yesterday, as we went to air, Tommy posted meeting lawyers about this clown on Friday. He continued, "These lies and smears have been told for well over a decade. They dehumanize me in the hope someone does what they did to Charlie Kirk. This whore knew I wasn't a terrorist. He used the words to purposefully defame me, but also to put a target on me for a violent attack just like what happened in St. Pancras." So before I get to the development, and it is a major one, and it involves a grovelling apology, let me remind you of the smears that were broadcast by GB News.
Well, it is ironic that people like Tommy Robinson are so in favour of stop and search until it's them that are stopped and searched. Tommy Robinson is a homegrown terrorist. He is racist. He is violent. He is an extreme right-wing.
Sorry, Pablo, can I just put you in for your own sake? Would you like to withdraw those comments about Tommy Robinson being a quote homegrown terrorist? Can I politely suggest to you that you might want to do that?
Tommy Robinson hates everything about our country. He has no place in our
homegrown terrorist,
life.
Pablo?
He has performed and he has delivered speeches that are incredibly divisive. They demonize our communities, they divide our country, and that is that is not who our country is. Our country.
But he's not a homegrown terrorist, though, is he?
He may not be a terrorist, but
okay. So you were drawing already, yeah.
And he encourages the type of division that this country does not stand for.
Talking of division, I don't know about you, Alan, but I'm sorry.
It may be in this case that the judge decided that he was stopped because of his politics. That may be the case. Okay. But there is no doubt.
But Alan, I was coming back to that because that's quite an interesting statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone on the left who comes straight out the traps and says Tommy Robinson's a homegrown terrorist, then has to backtrack on it and then talks about people like Tommy Robinson sowing division.
I think it's remarkable, and actually many on the so-called left bear huge responsibility for the problem of censorship and not allowing people to talk about things like rape gangs and borders without calling them racist. It's
Are you disagreeing that Tommy Robinson is far right and racist? He is far right and he is racist. That's not me being outrageous.
Again, I think
he is. That is
in a bit of trouble
factual.
there, Pablo. What you started off here was saying that he's a homegrown terrorist. It's utterly irresponsible. You've backtracked already. You've demonstrated the cavalier and superficial nature of your assessment, and I think you really need to take stock. We're having a very serious conversation in Britain about the concerns of the British public, where people who fly our national flag are called all sorts of names, where 1 million people went on Unite the Kingdom demonstration, and yet people are calling them at the Labour Party conference racist. No, you started off with a smear.
So, Pablo Ohana has now seen sense, posting a statement about my appearance on GB News last night and writing, correction. On the 4th of November 2025, I used an inaccurate term about Tommy Robinson during a GB News segment. Although I clarified during the segment the allegation I made was unfounded and ought not to have been made, he has no terrorism convictions and was acquitted in the only matter touching terrorism powers. I withdraw the remark in its entirety and apologise for the error. For the avoidance of doubt, I should not have used the words homegrown terrorist. But that's not enough, is it? It's simply not enough, because GB News brought this guy on and broadcast it. And while I appreciate Patrick Christie's did encourage him to withdraw the remarks, this does show one of the reasons why our mainstream media is so fundamentally flawed. Norman Fenton made that point, the professor, writing, the guy who made the libelous accusation against Tommy Robinson last night on GB News has issued this apology. Based on the rest of his interview, it's not genuine and was only due to the threats of legal action. But my question to GB News, where is your apology for inviting him on? Alan Miller, who appeared alongside Pablo in that debate, wrote, are you apologising because you're scared that legal action may be taken, or because you're genuinely sorry for saying something so malicious and patently untrue? You went on to repeat claims that Tommy Robinson is racist and encourages the type of divisions this country does not stand for, as well as repeating far right. This may be your opinion, but based on what facts? Concerns about rape gangs and radical Islamism? The trouble is you and too many others are all too ready to smear, lie, and use slurs rather than interrogate the issues openly in good faith. That is what increasing division in this country, and also is dangerous. Have you called out those engaging in the actual crimes by any name? This climate of calling not just Tommy Robinson but wider public these names has gone too far, and it needs to stop. As I said on the show, you need to take stock. This is so serious in Britain right now and puts people and our nation in direct danger. And I think that's true. But of course, I repeat the fact that this is a channel which does not believe that Tommy Robinson has a right to give his opinion. They've never platformed him. They've never allowed him on the channel at all. But it will put on hard left extremists who are prepared to call him a homegrown terrorist. Ezra Levant of Rebel News responded saying, this retraction and apology is grudging and it's 2 days late, but it is a retraction and apology nonetheless. And I would ask you, when was the last time Tommy Robinson received a retraction and apology from anyone in the political media class? Ohana is a nobody, and this was obviously compelled by a lawyer after his, or more likely GB News's. I've known Tommy for a decade and I've never seen an apology to him before. He was undefamable, as in you could say literally anything about him without worry. In the past, he didn't have the resources to sue, and even if he did, it was received wisdom that he had no reputation to be harmed. But that's changed. The comprehensive vindication of Tommy by Judge Sam Goose in the Westminster Magistrates Court will make it exceedingly dangerous for anyone to imply that Tommy is a terrorist ever again. And the mainstreaming of Tommy, including his reinstatement of his social media platforms, his successful rally in September, his friendship with Elon Musk, and his remarkable state visit to Israel, have rebuilt his public reputation and introduced him to millions of new people in a positive light. That's the legal definition of reputation. The Mean Girls in the UK's Clubby Media Guild never stopped referring to Tommy's EDL days a decade ago, but Tommy Robinson in 2025 is a very different person with an international brand, as in something to sue over. If Tommy were ever to say, sue the BBC, just imagine the document discovery of every malicious smear and insult in their corporate email and messages system. There would be thousands dripping with vulgarity, class snobbery, and hatred. I think the BBC would settle just to avoid revealing the depths of their classism and bias. What's more, Judge Goose's ruling that Tommy was illegally arrested because he was politically profiled opens the door to legal action against the police themselves if they continue their endless vendetta against him. And they are. Stand by for his next trial. Watching the police witness flounder on the witness stand during the Terrorism Act trial tells you the UK deep state simply has never had to justify their misconduct before. And they're not as clever as they think. I've already forgotten this loser pundit's name, but I'm happy to note his legal surrender, and I suspect it will be the first of many. Connor Tomlinson, this is a really interesting one because I actually completely agree with Ezra Levant there. Pablo Ohana, never heard of him, right? Like, he's just clearly a dude who is prepared to go on GB News for the 40 quid to effectively provide them with Ofcom balance. But I think that's one of the problems in our entire mainstream media, which is that GB News is prepared to put someone like that on air. They would have known, Connor, that he was going to describe Tommy as a homegrown terrorist if they were worth their salt. They certainly should have done a research chat with him beforehand. And they're prepared to do that because they're so desperate to provide balance. At the same time, they're not prepared to let Tommy Robinson defend himself on the channel.
Yes, Dan, I demand a better quality of left-wing propagandists because these people are unimpressive, stupid. They talk themselves down blind alleys and then have to do embarrassing retractions. Though it is encouraging that one of the few men in the country that you can just apparently libel without consequences, Mr. Robinson, has secured an apology and retraction. This is yet another step towards the denormalization of slandering your political opponents as fascists, racists, Nazis, terrorists, all of which, as Oren McIntyre has pointed out in the aftermath of the murder of Charlie Kirk, are just slurs which actually mean you can do violence against this person and you will be approved of by the media, the government, and the activist class. One thing that I will note is there is a note of optimism about the Robinson verdict, not just because police can no longer use their expansive counter-terror powers that are meant to apply to the actual jihadists imported into our midst, but are only ever levelled at the native population who complain about the importing of terrorists into our midst. But as Ezra pointed out, if this opens up the police to future legal action and sets precedent for targeting their political opponents, and I say there because the College of Policing has been ubiquitously infiltrated by DEI ideology ever since the Macpherson report on the 2014 hate crime operational guidance that developed things like non-crime hate incidents for protected characteristics. If that opens up that standard, then that protects the rest of us. So I'll do a quick story that I haven't told yet, and I didn't publish the video because I don't want people knowing where I live for obvious security reasons. But a couple of nights ago, 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a knock on the door from 2 police officers. And it happened to be that they were conducting a welfare check for the woman who used to live here. But I can tell you what, opening up my Ring doorbell at 1 o'clock in the morning, after the arrest of Pete North for a pro-Hamas meme at a similar hour a few weeks ago, seeing 2 police officers pounding on my door as I got dressed and my wife was shrieking because she was woken up by it, I was pretty spooked by that. I thought, okay, it's time to ring the Free Speech Union and Fair Cop and I'm going to end up in the Telegraph tomorrow. Nobody in this country should be living in fear of that happening to them for saying obviously sensible things on the internet about the state of their country. And if Tommy Robinson's acquittal and subsequent legal action against the police protects us, then he has done yet another service for this country.
I believe he has. I really do believe he has. And that is horrible and terrifying that that is what you would believe was about to happen to you, but I understand why. And of course, we have seen it time and again. Lucy Connolly springs to mind, doesn't she? Now, Axel Rudikabana was always quite clearly an Islamist terrorist operating in plain sight, behind closed doors, at his home, in front of his parents, who were welcomed with open arms into our country from Rwanda, and repaid us by allowing a demon to be raised within their household without properly reporting him to authorities, and then allowing him, and by the way, I do say allowing him, to go and slaughter to death BB King, age 6, Elsie Stancombe, age 7, Alice De Silva Aguirre, age 9, at a Taylor Swift dance class in Southport. Now, the details that we are learning from the Southport inquiry today are sickening me, are infuriating me, and it also shows me why this whole system, the whole deep state system, is totally focused on cover-up at its core. Because if we'd known this information, like we suspected, or like some of us did over a year ago, rather than the state focusing on locking people like Lucy Connolly up, there would be a very different discussion going on. Connor Tomlinson has posted on this. There it is, in black and white. Alphonse Rudikabana paid for the knife that Axel Rudikabana used in the Southport murders. He accepted the Amazon package on his son's behalf. He knew his son bought the seeds that Axel used to make poisonous ricin. Alice, Elsie, and Bibi would still be alive if not for his negligent parenting. He tried to shield his son from punishment. He knew it was violent and sought to hide details from the Lancashire Council Young Offenders team. He was given everything by our country: asylum, social housing, charity for his son's wheelchair, witness protection. Look at how he repaid us. He must be deported. And we will be speaking to Connor Tomlinson about this very shortly, of course. But before we do, I want to show you the shocking new details that have emerged in the past few hours, including hearing for the first time from Rudikabana's mother. First, here's this mainstream media reporting.
The inquiry into the Southport attack that left 3 little girls dead at a dance class last summer has been hearing from the father of the man who murdered them. Alphonse Rudikabana said his son had poured oil over his head and threatened to kill him. He told the inquiry he was desperate for help.
It emerged that the teenager ruled the roost at the family home, attacking his father, pouring oil on his head and threatening to kill him. He was searching for graphic extremist material online, but his parents failed to set any controls on his internet use, even after his school referred him to the counter-terrorism programme Prevent.
Alphonse Rudikabana said he accepted a share of responsibility for his failures to control his son. He said he and his wife were scared of him, and it had prevented him from doing things which would be expected of a parent, including asking him about packages being delivered to the house, which are now known to have contained knives. That had catastrophic consequences, he said, for which I'm desperately sorry.
He told the inquiry he was frightened of his youngest son and recalled an incident where Axel poured oil over his father's head. His eyes were very red, and it seemed he had some kind of mental anguish. He was poking my chest and saying, if you get me out of here, this house, it might take a day, a week, or it may be years. I will kill you, and trust me, I will kill you. Alphonse Rudikabana said he was worried that his son would be taken away from him. The inquiry heard that as the killer made his way towards Southport, inside the family home, they had found knife packaging in the washing machine and in the living room. When asked why they didn't call the police, Dion Rudikabana said he was not sufficiently worried because he trusted his parents. He said his mother went back to bed.
The revelations from the father today are even worse. Watch.
father of the Southport killer, Axel Rudakabana, has told the inquiry in Liverpool into the attack that he should have reported his son's purchase of a machete to the police. Alphonse Rudakabana says the package was delivered in June 2023. That's a year before his son went on to target 3 little girls at a dance class in July 2024. He said that upon hearing about the attack, he immediately feared his son could be involved. Lawyers for the parents of the 3 girls who died say the families have complete disdain for what they call the excuses of Alphonse Rudakabana. Sky correspondent Katie Barnfield has the latest from Liverpool now.
Well, there was some powerful testimony from Alphonse Rudakabana, who called his son a monster and said that he deeply regrets not doing more to stop him. He was questioned about deliveries of weapons to the house that his son had ordered, including a machete in June 2023 that his dad took delivery of. He said he knew it was a knife and he went to hide it upstairs on top of a wardrobe, but didn't confront his son because he was scared of him.
I mean, there is no excuse. He has blood on his hands. And in the past couple of hours, we've now heard for the first time from Axel Rudakabana's mother, whose identity has also been protected by the deep state. This is Letitia Muzayer, who says each of us, this is in her witness statement, each of us has come to the inquiry with open hearts. There are no words that will ever be enough to express our grief and remorse for those lives who were taken and whose were changed forever by our son's actions. As a mother, I grieve for my own son, but most of all for the innocent lives lost and that have been devastated. We are profoundly sorry and pray every day for the children and their families. There are many things that Alphonse and I wish we had done differently, anything that might have prevented the horrific event of the 29th of July 2024. For our failure, we are profoundly sorry. Do you accept the apology, Connor Tomlinson?
No, obviously not. And this is yet another example, Dan, of different peoples and different cultures having completely different standards of guilt and honesty to us. Because if it were a relative of yours, Dan, if this were my son in the future, one, I would be very introspective as to how I had raised such a violent, genocidal, impulsive murderer. But two, I would have had him sectioned and handed over to the police a long time ago. Not tried to hide details from the Lancashire Council Young Offenders team. Not tried to shield him from the law and police discipline. I wouldn't have allowed him to go back inside the house a week before he committed the murders, when he planned to commit an attack against his old school and got into a cab after talking him out of it. I wouldn't have allowed him to abuse his brother or my wife, were I Alphonse Rudakabana. I certainly wouldn't have given him pocket money for showering, which he then spent on multiple knives, and I certainly wouldn't, as Sky News have reported from the inquiry, have accepted a package containing a knife, which had, as Alphonse admitted, a reference to blades on the front of it, and then just thought, well, he might misuse it, so I'll put it on top of my wardrobe. I wouldn't have found mysterious chemicals in his bedroom, in pots, blue ink, and just chucked it down the toilet asking no questions. I would not have found a bow and arrow under his bed and thought, my crazy violent son who's already attacked classmates with a hockey stick after being expelled from school for carrying a knife 11 times, having ordered lots of knives on the internet, buying pure alcohol and seeds because he must be really into gardening, even though I've never seen him do any gardening. If I found a bow and arrow under his bed, I wouldn't go, well, he must be using it for sporting reasons. Did you see a target set up in their backyard? Did we see Axel walking down to some sort of archery range within Southport? No. This family benefited from social housing, asylum, for no discernible reason, by the way. No questions have been asked yet at the inquiry why they were granted asylum in the first place. 8 years after the Rwandan genocide, when the mother is related to someone in the government, when the father fought for the Rwandan Patriotic Front, so should be lauded as a war hero by Paul Kagame's government. No answers as to why they're here in the first place, but they were granted asylum. They were given social housing. They were given charity by the local community. Turns out they were studying for degrees, so they took out a student loan they probably weren't repaying, considering they didn't make more tax than they did in earnings. So they have taken and taken and taken from this country, and now their negligent parenting has led to their violent psychopathic son taking lives. They never needed to be here. Their son never needed to be here. They should be tried. They should be held to account, as one of the parents of the murdered girls has suggested, rejecting their apology. And then, when they have been made to answer for their negligent parenting in a court of law, they should be deported back to the country they should have always been in the first place.
Breaking right now, we have developments out of Birmingham where the first violence has erupted outside the Aston Villa Stadium. So young Bob, the activist from Turning Point UK, has said that he arrived at the Palestinian demo outside Aston Villa Stadium and that he was immediately assaulted by someone who recognised me as so-called Zionist. He says, thankfully, a few of the local organisers stepped in and kept things from escalating, but he added, tense doesn't even begin to describe it. So let's look at some of these scenes that have just come in now from young Bob. Watch this.
Solidarity, a message that the people of Birmingham are not going to.
What are you doing here?
Filming.
No violence.
He has a right to be here. Doesn't matter. We're going to protect him. He's in the reporters. We're going to protect him.
So immediately you saw that they went for the attack on young Bob. Israel Avant of Rebel News is also reporting at the scene. Let's watch.
Other than police, I understand that the West Midlands police force has increased their deployment from 700 police to 1,000. And you can see their trucks everywhere and they're stopping and towing cars. The pro-Palestine protest is scheduled to start at 6 p.m. Now, where we are here was supposed to be the counter protest. And so far, I think you can count on one hand's fingers the number of people here. And frankly, I find that a little bit depressing. Maybe people are scared. Maybe people are resigned to Birmingham becoming an Islamic city where Jews are not welcome. It's a no-go zone. Maybe people have decided tonight is the night not to go.
Absolutely fascinating. And we also have this just in from 2CTV.
You are a dirty Zionist, genocidal baby killer. That's what you do. He's baby killer. You kill babies. End of story. You kill babies. That's what you do.
He's a zombie.
Kill babies.
He's a zombie. Just a zombie.
John Campbell.
That's the zombie. Here we go. Time after time, all of you guys do the same thing. Chanting the same chants.
Coming
you
in
have
saying,
nothing to talk about besides
we've had children.
But you know what Gaza is? You don't know what Gaza is.
Coming in with
you know what?
bullet wounds.
But Connor, we are 2 hours away from this match kicking off. And it does already seem to be kicking off, even though the numbers are low.
I have such Middle East fatigue, Dan. Oh, that might be. Oh, there we go. I'm not muted. I have such Middle East fatigue because these people should not be here pushing for their ethnic and religious grievances in the first place. And whether it's American political discourse, whether it's British politics because of raw demographics and politically correct sensitivities, all we ever hear about is Israel. I mean, is this foreign policy issue the sun around which all of our politics must orbit? It's become a revealing issue to our political class who have imported these people into our midst with the vague hope they don't read the Quran and Hadiths a bit too closely, and they'll eventually somehow assimilate, overcoming decades of cousin marriage to become as British as you and me. And it's revealed that, turns out, even being born in Britain, brought up, given the benefits of its institutions, do not dissolve those indigestible tribal priors that result in violence and schizo conspiracy theories and, shouting about blood libels in the street. But even their sort of moralizing, their concern, they're saying, oh, you're butchering babies and that. Notice how they've never organised a protest for the grooming gang victims, never organised a demonstration for the victims of the Manchester Arena bombings. And so there's not this universal abstract commitment to human rights or innocent children. It's just ethnic and religious grievances for a group with whom I share nothing in common, and so I don't care. I don't care if they're complaining in my streets. I don't care if they're complaining about some foreign war elsewhere. I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to hear about it. And I certainly don't want them in Birmingham.
Breaking right now. Prince Andrew has in the past hour been summoned to appear before congressmen in Washington, D.C. for questioning over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. Let me show you this letter from the Congress of the United States. This, I do point out, is a Democratic committee. And they say, in the interests of justice for the victims, this is a direct letter, by the way, to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Apologies if I've referred to him as a prince, because of course that is wrong, but it's a lifelong habit, which I'm going to have to get out of. In the interest of justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, we request that you cooperate with the committee's investigation by sitting for a transcribed interview with the committee. Now, this is disastrous timing for both Prince William, who we're going to talk about, has made a major address at the COP summit today in Brazil after the Earthshot Prize last night, and Prince Harry, who is desperately trying to steal the attention from his older brother, and, by the way, convince us Brits that he's just the happy-go-lucky veteran, and, you know, he didn't accuse us all of racism for voting for Brexit a couple of years ago, so we will get to all of that. But this has truly been another disastrous day for the Andrew, formerly known as Prince, with the King finally issuing the letters patent which strips him formally of his titles. Watch as the news broke this afternoon.
We begin with breaking news this afternoon. In the past half hour or so, King Charles has formally removed Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's Prince title and his HRH style by issuing what's called a letters patent. Details of that have been published by the Crown Office in the Gazette, saying the King has been pleased by letters patent under the Great Seal of the Realm, dated 3rd of November 2025, to declare that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be entitled to hold and enjoy the style, title or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince.
But meanwhile, Prince Harry, who I think should just be Harry Mountbatten Windsor too, is on a charm offensive for those of us in the United Kingdom. But are we really going to forgive this scumbag who not only accused all of us of racism, but also accused his own family and the institution run by his late grandmother of racism? So here's the headline. Harry says he currently lives in the US, with a comment likely to spark speculation that he doesn't see America as his forever home, as he urges Brits not to forget veterans once the uniform comes off, in what LBC, the left-wing LBC, describes as a passionate Remembrance Day essay. But as the Royal News Network posted in response, says the man who abandoned his family, duty, and country, you can't make this stuff up. So let me just take you through what Prince Harry has actually said via this article by Tom Sykes in The Royalist. He writes, Prince Harry has inadvertently sparked speculation about plans long denied by his team that he one day plans to return to the UK by saying he currently lives in the UK. lives in the US. He recently told a podcaster he had no plans to become a US citizen. He made the new remark not in an off-the-cuff interview, but in a written article distributed on Global Newswires about Remembrance and Veterans Day celebrations, which take place all this week. Harry has provoked suspicions he is trying to take attention off his brother Prince William by travelling to Canada to support such causes today, the same day William presents his Earthshot Awards in Brazil. In the article entitled The Bond, the Banter, the Bravery, What It Means to be British, Harry, who moved to the US 5 years ago, paid special tribute to the wounded Ukrainian servicemen and women he spent time with earlier this year at the Superhumans Rehab Hospital in Kiev. He said, these people reminded me that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the triumph of purpose over it. Then, he said, there is a similar stoic spirit of self-deprecation and humour in Ukrainians that I recognise more than any other in us Brits. Though currently I may live in the United States, Britain is and always will be the country I proudly served and fought for. The banter of the mess, the clubhouse, the pub, the stands, ridiculous as it sounds. These are the things that make us British. I make no apology for it. I love it. But as Tom Sykes says, the comment is likely to provoke raised eyebrows at the palace and more vocal criticism online, where Harry is often accused of betraying Britain by attacking its monarchy and overstating his active military service. And Connor Tomlinson, I actually think that's a bit of an understatement, okay? Because what Harry has done, I think, is treacherous. I think it's treasonous. And do you remember a couple of years ago when he was totally ensconced in the US and believed that he would be there forever and that his marriage was perfect and all of that, he was constantly unable to say one positive thing about the United Kingdom. And I will never forget that Netflix documentary where he basically painted the United Kingdom as a racist hellhole because of Brexit, and also criticised the Commonwealth, which was his late grandmother's life work, as being British Empire 2.0. Remember, he dragged all of those hard leftist British haters on. So this 180 to now sort of try and win us back, it's not working for me. Is it working for you?
Well, the Commonwealth is British Empire 2.0, but not in the way that Harry thinks, given the levels of Commonwealth migration we've had in the last few years. But Dan, it's clear that this is another PR exercise because his adventurism in America hasn't got quite as well as his adventurism in Afghanistan. You might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but in Spare, wasn't he complaining that essentially his military service had basically been thankless? So even though people lauded him for being involved in the military, even though people thought that he was a sort of a lad about town for his raunchy escapades in Vegas, even though people turned out and congratulated him for his marriage to Meghan, it seems that he is, well, quite ungrateful for his station, has derelicted his duty representing one of the most historic institutions in Britain, and has thereby contributed to the degradation of people's respect for the institution. I mean, his father hasn't done great either, bending over backwards for Islam, helping the World Economic Forum, being more obsessed with vaccines and climate change than saving his own country from being demographically and culturally swamped. And then you've got, yet again, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who persists under a dark cloud of his at least friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, if not engagement in questionable activities with Mr. Epstein. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he complies with this request by the US congressional body to give a written interview. I think Democrats are pushing for this because they recognize that President Trump has been quite weak and mishandled the issue of Epstein. He's been flippant, trying to dismiss it, and it's probably because he's been frustrated by his team, particularly Pam Bondi's incompetent handling of the Epstein files, promising she's got this mountain of evidence on her desk that has never materialized just so she can get her Fox News clip and generate some traction. So all around, it's not looking good for the royals, and I don't think that Harry's going to be able to recover his damaged public reputation over in Britain.
And here's the letters patent. I mean, it is a bit of a historic moment, Connor, even though it was well signposted, because remember, for a long time there was this idea, well, there's going to have to be a debate in Parliament and stripping the titles just isn't possible. Well, it actually is, which I think sends a shiver down the spine of Prince Harry over there in Montecito, because I think by the end of his life, his brother will seek revenge and he will be Harry Mountbatten Windsor. I really do believe that. But let me just show you, because it is this historic moment. There's the very short update, given the significance of what the king is doing. The king has been pleased by letters patent under the Great Seal of the Realm dated 3rd of November 2025 to declare that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be entitled to hold and enjoy the style, title or attribute of Royal Highness and the titular dignity of Prince. And it's gone. Something that the late Queen Elizabeth II always considered his birthright, being known as Prince Andrew, is gone. Which means, in my view, there's no reason why Prince Harry should be Prince Harry, and there's no reason that Meghan Markle should be the Duchess of Sussex, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I think that logic's quite sound. The only thing I would say, Dan, is that I don't think he's going to be Harry Mountbatten Windsor. He's probably going to be Harry Markle, given his praise for progressive feminism might cause him to adopt her surname instead.
Now, I'm not sure if you're going to be impressed, Connor, with William's speech today. So he hosted the Earthshot Prize last night, which was a huge success, very star-studded, Kylie Minogue, Shawn Mendes. But of course, you do have the Woketopians there too, the Jacinda Arderns, the Sadiq Khans, the Slippery Starmers. And today, I don't know, verging into political territory at COP, where he was representing his father, by the way, because of the king's deteriorating health. Watch this.
affecting lives across the UK and across the world, from small towns to major cities, from coastal communities to inland regions. No corner of the globe will be unaffected. These impacts pose risks to growth, security, and well-being in all countries. But we know that these risks often fall hardest on those who contributed least to the crisis. This demands urgent, coordinated action. We must ask ourselves, what legacy do we wish to leave? Because the impact of all our choices will be felt by us all around the world, in the safety of their homes, the stability of their livelihoods, and the health of the natural world that sustains us all.
Now, Connor, given the terrible press that the royal family has had over the past month, William's trip, in my view, has actually been a triumph in Brazil. The imagery was incredible. You know, he was barefoot and, playing the volleyball and all of that. But this speech today, is it risky? You know, given that the whole issue of nut zero, as I call it, is now very much back on the table of British politics. What previously was just like a complete nodding through by the Uni Party is now a hotly contested issue, with Reform UK leading in the polls, saying hell no. The Tories coming to that point of view against, of course, a surging Green Party. So is it wise? Do you think it's wise for our future king to be involving himself in this zone?
No, but I don't think he can help himself, Dan, because it's been his father's project for many years, and he's taken up the mantle of mental health and climate issues. If you were talking in terms of conservation, your love of the land, England's rolling hills, its beautiful birds and its native species, mainly mammals, of course, not as people, that is a concern, then you would be talking in terms of not carpet bombing the countryside with concrete high-rises. And if you were talking about those paying a high price who have not disproportionately contributed to the degradation of our atmosphere, you would be saying, well, Britain only contributes 1% of annual carbon emissions, whereas the Chinese are doing upwards of 30. Most of the polluted rivers in the world are 2 out of Africa and the rest are from Asia. Might be the other way around, actually. And China and India are opening up new coal-fired power plants. Absolutely no repudiation by them breaking their Paris Accord commitments. So what that speech was actually saying about those who contribute the least but bear the greatest burden is another intersectional racial justice dog whistle saying, and of course it's black and indigenous communities who are the most impoverished but who suffer the most from carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide or any other gas that they want to complain about on any given day. And so I think this just falls on deaf ears. Like the climate issue now is a pure luxury belief, not just for the developing third world who don't care about their utopian green projects because they're too poor to not burn coal rather than dung and wood, but also because the rest of us are paying exorbitant taxes and subsidies for renewables that don't work when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. And our energy bills are only escalating so that the political class can jet around the world to places like Brazil and give speeches about how good they feel about themselves. So I think this is yet another example of the royals being just as out of touch as our politicians are. And when the time comes to replace the political class, if the honour of the House of Windsor is in question, then I don't think this speech helped them win back any brownie points.
Connor, I've got to ask you as well about the big royal story on the front page of the Sun newspaper today. Meghan Markle's so desperate, all of her projects since moving to Hollywood haven't worked, that she's going back to acting, making a shock return to acting, playing herself in a movie alongside Lily Collins, Brie Larson, Jack Quaid. I mean, I guess the one thing that we can take from this, Connor, is that Megxit has been a disaster, right? Because this is the one thing she said that she would never do. I remember speaking to sources very close to Meghan when she entered the royal family, and it was like, she never wants to go back to acting. That is done.
Well, she's playing herself down, and she's been, preparing the role for a lifetime, because she's certainly been method acting her way into fakeness. I know all of her co-stars as well are insufferably woke, like Brie Larson, who played Captain Marvel and lectured the fans, and the entire point of that film was that actually the woman was being held down by the man, and the power was inside her all along, and if she just rejected the patriarchy and lent into her emotions, then she would be always as powerful as she was meant to be. She also crushed the fist of a guy who said that she should smile. So, yeah, she's basically a villain. And then there's Jack Quaid, who's the star of The Boys, which is... The entire series has become just political drivel at this point, especially the second season, which just scaremongered about the ever-present threat of Nazis, and is written by Seth Rogen, who is just a repulsive drug addict who's incredibly narcissistic, and justified his car being broken into in LA once for some weird reason. Jack Quaid has not exactly been shy about his contempt for his fellow Americans who voted for Donald Trump. But at least Prince Harry can console himself with the fact that his wife is probably going to do another sex scene that he will watch over and over again and cry about.
Yes, he will. Yes, he absolutely will. He will be in tears about that without any doubt. I want to return to our main story today now. Birmingham has fallen. New scenes of these protesters who are chanting "Stop the barbaric Israelis" as young Bob has now been arrested. But let's look at this first.
Barbaric Israeli establishment, all their teams are up. We will be up. Takbir! Allahu Akbar!
So, Connor, that was them chanting Allahu Akbar on the streets of Birmingham. And now young Bob, who we saw, by the way, we literally saw it with our own eyes, young Bob being assaulted as he arrived. According to reporters on the scene, he has now been arrested. I haven't watched this yet. Let's look together.
Every time you go in there, you're instigating. I haven't interviewed people. I interviewed one person, and you've correctly identified the format as an interview.
That's a bit of a two-tier.
The first occasion was a man who came up to you and said, "I don't like him because he just speaks his point of view." The second gentleman,
young Bob's rocked up, he's been attacked. But now they're trying to remove him from the area.
No, I'm not.
We'll have to arrest him and then he's going to have to sue you in court. Yeah, arrest him and then he'll sue you, isn't it? Israel! Yeah. So he's arresting young Bob. Yeah, laugh at it, Bob. Take it.
We'll take it.
Pick up your chest, you young soldier.
We'll take the arrest.
Yeah. And him man wanted to talk to a Christian. That's what it was. What is wrong with that? So we're not allowed to have religion.
Connor Tomlinson, quite extraordinary, isn't it? We see the Islamists there shouting Allahu Akbar, talking about barbaric Israelis. The man arrested is, the 17-year-old citizen journalist, young Bob, the Christian.
Yeah. Funny that. They still haven't apprehended all of the youths of conspicuous diverse extraction that were firing fireworks at the police officers last night. But don't worry. 17-year-old kid with a phone going around asking people why they're there, which is probably what the police should be doing, to be honest. Yeah, no, you can slap him in cuffs. All this is, Dan, is classic anarcho-tyranny. The laws will be applied against the law-abiding because they know that you will comply with them. But against the total savages who have no respect for our rule of law and want to take it over, and are shouting Allahu Akbar because they know that it has connotations with terrorism, they want to intimidate us, and they play the shell game just going, oh, it just means God is great. Not my God, thank you very much. And that God actually endorses terrorism and the wholesale slaughter of Christians and Jews, which I don't want in my country. Yeah, they don't crack down on those people. Isn't that conspicuous?
Very conspicuous indeed. Okay. Well, let's see how it develops over the next few hours in Birmingham. But of course, it's not a good sign, is it? Connor Tomlinson, thank you so much. Of course, host of the brilliant Tomlinson Talks, which you must subscribe to on YouTube. Now, we're going to reveal the worst Britain in the world this week. Right now, because we have a very special show tomorrow, which I'll tell you about in one moment. But a reminder of the nominees. On Monday, it was Ed Miliband for his climate extremism. On Tuesday, Rachel Reeves for clearly breaking her manifesto pledge to increase taxes. And on Wednesday, David Lammy for that appalling performance in the House of Commons. But before I reveal the results, first to your feedback. Melly9037 says, I put down Lammy as his dreadful behaviour in Parliament was a travesty to all those great men who had once sat there in governments of our once great nation. An absolute shambolic performance. How dare he sit there and bring down the floor to some common argument in the street? The man should be sacked. An embarrassment to party and country. Gary Haywood, 8073, says the video of Lammy at question time was hilarious. They have zero answers because they know nothing other than what they're told. But when is the speaker going to start to allow lies to be called out and eject the liars over the accusers, as it's abhorrent MPs get to barefaced lie about important issues? It really is no better than a kindergarten playground with a childish name calling and zero banter. The clowns think they have. It's almost like running the country isn't at the forefront of any of their minds, only hurling pathetic insults while deflecting. And Bad Monkeys 6899 says, with Ed Miliband's stupid net zero green policies, he has done more damage to our country and our economy than even Rachel Reeves. Because of him, we are all paying more for our energy bills, and because of Rachel Reeves, we are all going to be paying more taxes now. This government has made it much harder for people to live. And Vulgar says they're all willing puppets of their globalist masters who are really the power. These politicians of all parties have no power. They are rewarded for their compliance with riches that they could not gain otherwise. And Anu Nyoveran says they are all very, very dangerous, but Reeves gets it this week for her vile attack on all of us. Her lies and incompetence know no bounds. Okay, the results are in. It was a 2-horse race, and it was very, very close for much of the day. In third position, with just 8% of your vote, Ed Miliband. The runner-up with 45% of the vote, Calamity Lammy. But the worst Britain in the world this week, and my God, I agree with you, Rachel Thieves, Rachel from Accounts, who's destroying the economy, destroying our finances, with 48% of your vote. Now, we're moving over to Substack now for the Uncancelled After Show, where we're going to discuss all of the royal developments of the day, much, much more with the royal YouTube sensations, the Sidley twins. I am so excited about this, so I do hope you'll join us over at www.outspoken.live. Now, we have a very special edition of the show tomorrow, the return of Lucy Connolly. We've got a big announcement to make with Slippery Starmer's ultimate political prisoner, and I really hope you will join us for that exclusive interview at 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe on YouTube, turn on the notification bell so you're alerted to our new episodes, and most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.